preview the Colorado Rockies for 2026, up next on Fantasy Baseball Today. Welcome to On the Beat, our team preview series here at FBT. I am Chris Towers, joined by Jake Shapiro, analyst on Denver Sports 104.3. Make sure you give him a follow on X at Shapalicious. And we're here to talk about the Rockies, who hopefully things are going to be better in 2026 and beyond. I guess with the way the 2025 season went, it can't get worse. The Rockies offseason has been pretty quiet. I think the biggest move was kind of a restructuring of the front office. They brought in Paul DePodesta. You may know him as Jonah Hill in Moneyball, or as the guy who helped run the Cleveland Browns for a little while, but he's back in baseball. A kind of a pioneering sabermetrics voice within the game, and they are going to try to rebuild this, modernize the Rockies front office. And outside of that, it's been a quiet offseason. They signed Willie Castro to a 2-year deal. That's one that might actually matter for fantasy if Willie Castro can get back on track. They signed Michael Lorenzen to a 1-year deal. I saw maybe a little bit of discussion of him potentially being a 2-way player. Is there any actual smoke there?
Well, my first thought when they signed Michael was, oh my God, he's a better hitter than he's a pitcher. Like, he's always been a good hitter. And when you look at the stats, he would have actually been the 4th or 5th best hitter on the Colorado Rockies last year. So should he be a 2-way player? Probably not. But should he get some at-bats? I would say yes.
And there are benefits to that from a team building perspective. You get a roster exemption for the amount of pitchers you have if they're a designated 2-way player. The Dodgers are currently the only team that benefits from that, but hey, maybe the Rockies can get creative. They also acquired Jake McCarthy from the Diamondbacks, and we do have a few big fantasy questions for the Rockies because we would love, as fantasy players, for the Rockies to be a really good offensive team again. There were a lot of really fun seasons with the Rockies back when, Nolan Arenado and Charlie Blackmon were some of the best players in baseball. So I guess the first question we'll start with is, do you expect a bounce back from Brenton Doyle? And do you expect Brenton Doyle to remain in Colorado this season?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big questions still in the offseason is, will they continue to keep Brenton Doyle and Mickey Moniak? And where these guys are at with their contract and arbitration and all that, at least seems like they're going to hang on to Doyle for a little bit longer. I'm curious, this is one of the first big questions with the new front office, what they value in a player, because Doyle, while in 2024 was a decent offensive player, has never been an above average offensive player. His entire value is in the fact that until PCA came onto the scene for real, he was the best defensive center fielder in the National League.
Which is really important in that park.
Yes. And the thing that no one realizes is that the Rockies had never had a good defensive center fielder to that point. So watching Doyle play, even though the team was horrid, was kind of like this little ounce of joy. So for him to be not very good last year was kind of like the icing on the cake of just terribleness. And will he bounce back? I don't know. Like, they've got some new voices in the hitting department. I'm hopeful that maybe some of them can bring Doyle's swing back. But I also remember so many Rockies of the past, whether it's like Jordan Pacheco or, Nolan Jones, where they had this one awesome season for the Rockies for a myriad of different reasons. And that's kind of the story of their entire career. And we're now at the point with Doyle where he's had as many plate appearances in Major League Baseball where he's been a far below average hitter as he's had where he's an average hitter.
This is bringing up memories of David Dahl for me as well. One other big question, what are Charlie Condon's chances of making the opening day roster? This was a big-time prospect, one of the top picks in the draft a couple years ago. Record-setting college hitter. Things have not gone as well since he got to the pros. He dealt with a wrist injury last season. Just hasn't had the power there, but he did get to Double-A, and there's some talk that he could be in the mix for a first base spot. Do we think that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, if you look at Condon and where the Rockies are at first base, I think that opportunity is more born out of the fact that the Rockies are really desperate for a first baseman, right? Like they don't have anybody. And if you look at the draft class with like Burns and Kurtz, like and Caglione, like these all guys in his class have made their debuts that have gone to college, and Condon was the best player of that bunch. But if you look at his minor league career, the results have been pretty good. The problem is that he has gotten hurt at so many of the spots, and he's had some dips in the power. It's kind of gone on and gone off a couple of times. I would be personally stunned if he was on the opening day roster. Do I think that there's a chance that he's on the roster by like Memorial Day? Yes. I think that's kind of when the window opens. If you remember how they handled Dollander last year, and again, different front office, Dollander wasn't on the opening day roster, but Dollander came up literally for the first homestand of the season. Yep. And it was the stupidest thing ever because they managed him in the way where he was not eligible if he ended up being an MVP for the bonus pick. And they also weren't going to get the extra year of arbitration on the back end. So I don't expect them to be that stupid this time around because they seem to be run by someone else. But I do expect them to at least hold on for a little bit with Condon, and they've brought in like a couple names that can seemingly play first base for a little bit before they get frustrated and say, we need somebody else.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk Rockies.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go!
Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
All right, we're back on Fantasy Baseball today, previewing the Rockies for 2026, and we're going to talk some sleepers and breakouts. And the nice thing about the Rockies is nobody's going to cost you very much in your drafts, and they still play at Coors Field. They have 2 players right now currently with an ADP inside of the top 200 in fantasy drafts. They are very, very cheap. So who is your sleeper pick for the Rockies in 2026?
Yeah, my sleeper pick is a guy I actually really liked a couple years ago, and he had a rough year last year. The Rockies just picked him up, Jake McCarthy. He was one of the better players in baseball, I believe, in the second half of the 24 season. He's never been a power guy, but with the wide expanses of Coors Field, just like Arizona, he does get out on the base paths a little bit. So, you know, if you're in a stolen base league, that's kind of important. But I think he's going to stretch doubles into triples. Like, I think he's going to be one of those guys. And I think the thing that we saw with Jake McCarthy, who was a decent average guy, and that came all the way down last year, is Coors Field, while people think it's like good for the home run ball, it's really good for your average. It just pushes your average up. So could I see Jake McCarthy being a guy that hits 275 with 20 stolen bases? Totally. And maybe his WAR at the end of the year looks like a 0 because that's kind of what you're supposed to do at Coors Field as an outfielder, but that's still valuable in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, 2024, he wasn't a full-time player, only 495 plate appearances, but 25 stolen bases. He hit 285. It's going to be a lot of doubles, a lot of triples. So there could be an opportunity for Jake McCarthy to be a surprisingly useful fantasy option. And then your breakout pick, someone who, at least before last season, looked like he was developing into the real cornerstone of this franchise. Do you think Ezequiel Tovar is in line for a bounce-back season?
I do. And last year was just plagued by injuries. He was on and off the injured list, and it just was not a good year for Tovar. But if you look at the second half of the 24 season, I think he had like 12 or 15 home runs, somewhere in there for the 24 season. He hits, 20 plus home runs on the entire season. If you like put his pace out for the second half and just put it out over the entire season, like he was on pace for like 35 home runs just in the second half for an entire season. And we're talking about a shortstop. Like you could get 30 plus home runs out of your shortstop in fantasy baseball. Like that's a smash draft for me, especially when you're going to be able to get this guy extremely late. And I know a lot of people have cooled on him, but when you're probably getting him as your backup shortstop and you're just taking a chance, to me, that's like an awesome opportunity. The Rockies aren't doing anything else with this position. They have Willie Castro, who could be a decent backup. We saw him play shortstop a little bit with Minnesota and Chicago last year. They have Tyler Freeman, who can do the same. But it's not like they have some shortstop coming up in their system. Amador is a prospect. He's a middle infielder, but they're kind of cooled on him. All the way out Jackson Holiday, but there's no one coming for Tovar's job, and he's got a giant extension which takes him for like 5 more years. The Rockies need Tovar to work, so they're gonna play him the entire year.
Yeah, and he's got some plate discipline issues, but we saw him be a really, really productive player in 2024. 26 homers, 6 stolen bases, hit 269, was a very useful fantasy option, and still only 24 years old. So there could be room for that bounce back. Coors Field is going to help, and just hopefully a more competitive team. I don't think the Rockies are a ways away from being good, but I think they will be more competitive in 2026, should be a kind of rising tide that lifts all boats, or at least some boats in Colorado.
I think there's a feeling that the only direction is up, and I'm glad people feel that way. But if you look at this team's pitching staff, there isn't much to believe to me that this team isn't going to lose 115 games plus again next year. The problem really is why they lost 120 was because their middle infielders were hurt so much between Tovar and the revolving door they had second base. The infield defense, Dick Monfort, the owner of the team, says going into the season, we have an all-time historic best infield defense. This is coming from a guy who used to watch DJ LeMahieu, Nolan Arenado, Troy Tulowitzki, and Todd Helton in the same infield at one point. He is saying this infield defense is going to be better. And it led Major League Baseball in errors. Yikes. So that's kind of where the Rockies are in terms of thought and how off they are about the evaluation of their own team. That being said, I really just don't think there's enough pitching on this team to believe they're gonna do anything but lose 100 games. I like a couple names in their bullpen between Vodnik, Hergerd, and Halverson. But you look at the starters on this team, who the heck is getting through 5 innings? Is it going to be 30-plus-year-old Kyle Freeland? Is it going to be very old Michael Lorenzen? Is it Tanner Gordon? Yikes.
I hope they can get a better plan for Chase Dollander at least. He's clearly got talent, and they just I don't think they were optimizing him. Obviously, Coors Field didn't help. So hopefully getting some new names in there and just some better ideas won't hurt. Because like you said, the self-evaluation seems to have been a problem in Colorado the past few years. All right. Thanks so much to Jake Shapiro, analyst at Denver Sports 104.3. Make sure you check out his work and give him a follow on X at Shapalicious. And for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to the On the Beat Team Preview Series, and we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll see you then.